Yeah, this is Mike Overtat, boss. We're here in Denton, Texas. So we are on a roof that we just had a small rain last night. As you can see, there are areas all over the roof where water is starting to puddle. Over here it's definitely puddling a little bit more. But what we're doing right now is they obviously had a hailstorm that came through, and we're going to be checking for punctures and damage to the actual membrane itself. This is TPO. But more than anything, like, what we want to see is, are these seams around here, are these still sealed? Over there on one of the units, as you can see right here, look, there's some hail hits that were on the roof. These are sealed pretty good right here, this area. We're going to look around and just make sure that those overlaps haven't come up, because that will cause big issues with leaking. And then obviously we're going to start checking all of those. Also be checking areas like this, make sure that we're not having those issues. And then we want to obviously inspect the membrane itself. If we were going to replace this roof, we would take a core sample to see what's underneath of it. But I mean, the drainage on here is just very poor, which is an issue. When roofers are building roofs, the insurance policy of just making sure that you just put another extra drain in is way better than having to come back later and trying to manipulate this. And this is obviously an area where water's been ponding over a long period of time. I guarantee you they've had leaks at one time or another, perhaps here or perhaps on another place of the roof. But to install a drain, every drain should be installed for 2 drains for every 10,000 square feet, and for every additional 10,000 square feet, you want to install another drain. So when roofers are building this, I mean, we don't have, to me it looks like there's no interior drains, and really all you have is these scuppers on the outside, which are randomly located in corners, and there's no tapering. So as you can see, like, there's no slope going towards getting this water off the roof. That's why you're having such a large amount of puddling that's occurring. Is that, and then look at these, the membrane is coming up around this equipment. You just have, right here, look, where it's sitting. If any of this membrane is starting to come up, you're definitely going to have water coming through there. And then just the effects that it's causing by having this sit here, and you have acid rain, you have other air pollutants that is on top of the membrane. It's going to decrease the life expectancy of this roof. But as you can see over here, look, there's no tapering, like there's no sloping into this scupper. So what's the point of even having this drain here? And this drain over here is that water is not flowing off of it. So this is the sort of design flaws that roofers are doing that are creating a giant liability. That's why of all the building materials, roofing is the biggest liability and it has caused the most lawsuits, is because really the biggest problem to this day is poor workmanship. They are now just beginning to start NRCA and other organizations to set up apprenticeship programs where actually have a classroom setting where you can study this. Study the equations that are behind drainage, study how to actually structure a low slope roof, because regardless of whether you think this is flat, this isn't flat. There's a slope to this. It's supposed to be a 1/4 inch per foot. So you know how you have 1/12, 1/4 inch per 12, and that's like the minimum. So obviously this roof wasn't built the way that it should have been, and it's not obviously being maintained. A quick solution to one of those problems is actually putting up a solar pump that would get some of this off the roof. We didn't have a very big rainstorm last night, so to have all this water sitting, look at all this puddling. And what this actually does is it sits there. Look at this. Look at this. And it sits there, and over time, depending on what's underneath of this, it's going to actually start to structurally dwarf this roof system. So look at all this. This is just sitting here, and then you have these seams where this is not a good way to build a roof. And you really, I mean, you got a little bit of tapering over here. But look at this. All this is sitting here. Now imagine if it was a big storm and the water couldn't get off fast enough. You're just going to have overflow. All of this would be sitting. You'd have large size ponds here. So this is why roofs fail. This is why flat roofs are a huge liability, you know, to property owners and investors, is because nobody knows how to install them. And then over here, you don't even really have any sort of slope in the first place. But if you did have a slope and the slope was coming in this way, or if it came in this way, where's the cricket? So this is just a very poorly improved edge.
You see water just sitting there.
Yeah, it's just, this is very poorly.
Look, you can see the water right here. It's not even going out. It's just sitting there.
Yeah, it's
just sitting at the drain.
And then look, they probably put the gutters. Look, okay, so where's that flowing in? So look, this is another issue. Look at this. You can't have this sitting right up against the scupper. It needs to be sitting a little bit lower. You know why? Because if it's sitting right up against the scupper and it gets clogged at the bottom of this downspout, then that water is going to sit back and drain back at the roof. So if you have a little bit of a drop, if that downspout did get overflowed, the water would just still and then flow off of the top of the downspout. So another design flaw. And so it's so much easier to just hire someone that knows what they're doing upright. Unfortunately, the industry is full of people that don't know how to install these roof systems. They rely upon their crews to whatever they're going to install. So, you know, they're not thinking about the actual components. It's not like a shingle roof system where you can put on ABC felt. You're not supposed to, GAF, and these different, you know, from different manufacturers, and it still work. Every roof, every component has to be looked at in regards to how it affects the other components, and it has to be looked at as whether or not it should be on this roof system in the first place. And roofers don't have the knowledge. They rely upon their crews to have that knowledge, and that's something that I, and as well as many other people, are trying to change in the industry to get more of a standardized knowledge base, with like apprenticeship programs and things like that, or just in classroom training to actually be able to bounce it off of years and years and years of experience. Because this is, you can feel it right here where it's warping. It's warping whatever's underneath of it. So if it's, you know, the insulation, it's actually starting to warp it, and it's going to affect its R value over time. So this roof was clearly not designed properly at first, and the cost of not designing a roof properly up front is trying to save a little bit of money, and up front without installing a couple drains or doing things right is going to cost a tremendous amount over a period of time. So that's why it's so important to hire a contractor that knows what they're doing, and then have a maintenance and inspection program in place to prevent these sort of things from happening. Because if I gave this roof a grade, I would give this roof an F, because it's just basic flaws in its design that are just unacceptable and shouldn't have been done. So we're going to actually start looking around at the roof, and it looks like people were just walking up here and like scraping stuff around. So we're going to actually start looking at this and seeing if there's a significant enough hail damage to have a claim, and then we're obviously going to try to address this with the property owner to see where we're going to go from here. Oh, another thing, last thing over here. This is actually one of the few things that is designed well. You also want to check these to make sure, especially if there's like sealing around here, that's not broken and puddling in, because water could sit up top.